Good afternoon. I'm speaking to you live just outside.
I like to think balding is just God's way of saying, now let's see you get laid.
Is it true that if you don't use it, you lose it?
What I'd really like to do is put the greatness of this man in perspective.
The hairloss community has a lot to be thankful for, having you as a spokesperson.
You mean you just call this guy up?
About life and about reality.
And now, America's #1 reality radio show for men. Live from Los Angeles, it's Spencer Kobren's The Bald Truth.
Well, hello, everyone. Joseph Tillman, how are you? Joseph W.T. Tillman.
Spencer Mortimer.
I like that.
I'm good.
What's happening? How are you feeling, Ray?
How am I feeling? What?
Ray.
I'm feeling good.
Good.
Feeling pretty good. Feeling good.
Good. Awesome. Phone number, guys, is 888 excuse me, 659-3727. This is the Hair Loss Show. We do this every single week. Joe Tillman does his program, The Main Event, every day, basically 4 days a week, except when he tells you that he's not doing it, which I think he didn't do it yesterday.
I did not do it yesterday.
Yeah.
Exactly. Sometimes it's like it's the middle of the day thing, and I do have other things to do, and sometimes it comes down to priorities. Do I do the show, or do I finish the project?
And that's
do I do
exactly
the show, or do I have some sushi?
That's exactly how I feel about this thing, even though it's just once a week. Like, all right,
you know what?
We can do it.
Fridays are important.
There's a lot of people that have a lot of questions. There's a lot of people who need a lot of help. Unfortunately, they're not coming to us right away. Sadly, what happens is, in general, especially now in the last, I'd say, 5 years or so, people are like, you know what? Maybe we don't want to listen to these old guys. We're going to go and just go for it. We're young.
We're going to go.
These guys don't know what we're talking about.
We're going to go listen to guys that affirm our fears and desires and encourage us to go for the cheapest one possible.
Absolutely. They affirm our, like you said, deepest fears and anxiety, which I guess, we affirm your fears too. We know that they're real. We understand the anxiety of hair loss is real. I wouldn't be doing this for 26 years if it wasn't. But we're not going to. A guy contacted me this week, or 2 weeks ago, actually, through Instagram. Older guy, like early 50s, I think, if I remember correctly, or late 40s, asked me some specific questions about a clinic that is very well advertised and promoted through Instagram. Happens to be in Turkey. Again, people hear me say this all the time, like I have something against Turkish hair transplant clinics. I do not. There are really, it's a handful, but some really top-notch clinics and surgeons who happen to reside in Istanbul and other parts of Turkey, Ankara. But they're really hard to find unless you find us, because they're not the cheapest. And the reason they're not the cheapest, it's not just because they work with us and they're booked out and, they have, credentials that we've been able to vet with, great patients. It's because they're not cutting corners. It's because they're doing things in, in a way that's in the best interest of patients. They're using the more expensive holding solutions. They're using the more expensive, equipment.
Yeah.
Cut the size blades, or the more expensive punches that aren't going to essentially. If you've ever seen these guys at these conferences showing off these punches and these some of this really inexpensive metal forceps that are, they're breaking on these doctors. They're bending. They're destroying grafts just because. All right, we're going to spend $7 less per punch. If they get a little dull a little quickly, who's going to know? No one's going to know that their hairs are being transected because we were too cheap to spend a little extra money on quality, maybe German-engineered punches. No one knows any of this shit.
That's a good point. And there's also, some clinics have their own R&D for their own tools or for their own, equipment that they use that is exclusive to them. I actually talked to a doctor today, not in Turkey, but one of the newest applicants that wants to work with me, and he makes his own tools. And I thought that was interesting. We had a long talk about it, and he's on the quest to create smaller punches than are readily available on the market, and he's got a very specific reason that he wants to create these punches at a high quality. This stuff isn't cheap.
No, it's not cheap. And it's interesting, people ask me, so when we did Global Hair Loss Summit, and when I decided to, kind of think about the way we were going to plan this back in 2020, what I wanted to do is I didn't want to have, and again, this is just it's just a phrase that's used. I didn't want to have a Turkish bazaar of of virtual booths of people selling their wares to these unsuspecting doctors who really, sadly, while the older guys kind of understand what needs to be purchased and the best equipment for the job, the younger guys, the newer guys, they're just trying to cut costs. They don't really know. They think it's all the same. So we decided to pick best in class, even when it came to selling the people who sell this type of equipment, punches and implanter pens and all that stuff. And other companies wanted to be a part of Global Hair Loss Summit. And we actually charge a significant fee, actually more than any brick and mortar conference in this industry, just to be part of what we do.
Yeah.
And we do that because we really select, and I can't think today, Jesus, we really are selecting best in class when it comes to any products or services that are being offered to the physicians who attend our conference. That's my key. With that said, I got a lot of shit for that from those who aren't selected best in class. They didn't understand why we were unwilling to take their money, because every other conference in every other field, but especially this field, not especially, but including this field, will take sponsorship dollars from anybody who's willing to pay them. So I explained why we had select technology contributors to, I think initially when we did the first conference. And I think it made sense to some people. And then there were some other people saying, well, I appreciate the opportunity and we're going to do this. I never forget this one company. But as you grow, you're just going to take other people on board. So this isn't going to be exclusive. And I said, unless you really start to rip off physicians and provide lesser quality products, this is your slot, period. If someone else comes along and is doing a better job than you, then that slot is theirs. And for 3 years in a row, they were able to keep that slot.
Yeah.
So my point is, it was never really brought up before to the industry how important this technology, this equipment, even the simplest things like forceps and punches, things that you don't think will make a difference in the end result, how important that is to the overall surgery. In the end, the well-being and the mental and physical well-being and health of the patients these doctors serve. And because of that, I now understand there's going to be a paper written for a journal, which we will be able to say which journal soon, that is essentially highlighting these aspects as far as the importance of surgery and why equipment counts. So I'm pretty proud of that, I guess, because it's never been done before. And now there's a doctor willing to do it because he's like, yeah, why didn't we ever read this when we were learning when we were getting into this field, when we were initially learning? How come my pre-turnship and all of these, different organizations never taught us this. Well, they didn't teach you this because they're taking money from everybody. So they're not in a position to say which device is better or which tool is better or which is going to be.
You figure it out.
Yeah. That's all they want to
everything.
do. Right.
Figure it out.
Right. It's like your news being, sponsored by, I don't know, a pharmaceutical company.
Yeah. Well, that's a whole nother
right, but
it's a whole nother rabbit hole.
Right, but it's unfortunate. So I'm going on a tangent here. I don't even know why I got on this tangent. Phone number is 888-659-3727. This is the Hair Loss Show. I've been doing this for 26 years. I know it sounds crazy. Why are you guys still doing this online when maybe you're reaching 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 people a week? Because if you really think about it, people, those are 3,000 lives or 2,000 lives that we are not necessarily influencing, but we're providing them with the information they need to make informed decisions, and that information exists nowhere. I don't care what you read on message forums. I don't care what's being told to you behind the scenes on the back end of these message forums or on social media. I'm telling you, you're not getting the truth. I've been doing this forever, and the bullshit that I see every day, and that's coming back to me based on information being provided to young, vulnerable patients by people who run message forums. It's un-effing believable. We're going to take your calls in a second, 888-659-3727. I had a conversation with an extremely well-known, and I use quotes loosely because I hate this term, influencer. He's got like 1.3 million followers. Mm-hmm. Saw him, met him at a local supermarket. He's a physician. He's in the nutrition space, the alternative diet space, the carnivore / ancestral diet type of space. And we had a conversation. And the initial conversation was very short. And I'm like, hey, man, nice meeting you after we spoke. Shook his hand. And everyone was like trying to take a picture with him, whatever it is. I'm like, yeah, all right, so we'll give me a call if you want. Contact me. Then the guy finds me in the supermarket again, comes back to me, and he starts to ask me 1 million questions about hair loss and what I thought about Huberman's podcast and what I thought about this and what I think about this and what I think about that. I don't mind giving him my time. And as a matter of fact, I was a little excited to meet him myself. I wouldn't say I was starstruck, but I was like, wow, a small world. This is really interesting. This guy has a big reach, and he wants to speak to me. Like, all right, let's talk. So he asked me what works, what doesn't work, like rapid fire shit. I'm trying to explain to him, listen, man, most of this shit that you see doesn't work. I love Andrew Huberman, but the reality is everyone has their own wheelhouse. And when you're getting involved in podcasting or international broadcasting, like becoming an influencer, sometimes you have to go outside of your wheelhouse. And when you do that, you may not be getting all the information that you need. You're kind of getting press release content and, possibly regurgitating it. Maybe his research team did the research and provided him with the content. And while the guy was able to really explain, how, the causes of hair loss and, digest the information and put it out there in a very lucid fashion. When he was talking about effective treatments, that's when he lost me. And that's when I kind of realized, when these guys tread into someone else's wheelhouse, people who watch them take their word as the gospel because they're so good at what they do at their wheelhouse.
Yeah. Yeah, of course.
Like Huberman's a neuroscientist, I think, and he works at Stanford. He's a researcher, PhD, and super smart guy, really explains things well. I'm a big fan, as a matter of fact. When it came to explaining the effective treatment for hair loss, sadly, it was almost 100% press release journalism, in my view. I explained this to this influencer, and then he's like, well, what do what works? And I said, look, the bottom line is this is a medical issue. We do know that DHT plays a major role. You need, young guys especially, or people early on, need to consider finasteride, dutasteride, 5-alpha reductase inhibitors. And his first response to me was, well, what about post-finasteride syndrome? And I said, look, that's a long subject, long topic to talk about at a supermarket in the aisle. So
don't think it's best to discuss it in front of the frozen pizzas.
Right. And everyone's trying to take a picture with him and all this. I have to tell you that this is going to sound obnoxious. I usually don't feel invisible in life, but at that point, I was totally invisible. Like, people were just like, oh, my God, I love you. Can we take a picture of this and that? And I was like, listen, dude, let me go. You want to contact me? And he's like, give me your full name again. So I'm like, okay. And I like, you can find me on Instagram. And he wrote down my stuff. But I found it very interesting that he was so into it. Like, it was beyond normal, just curiosity.
I'll tell you why. I'm surprised you didn't notice this or think of it. Maybe you did. He had his iPhone in his pocket recording the conversation so he could use these tidbits for some reels. Did you know that blah, blah, blah?
That would be great if he actually did that. But what happened was, and I found this to be strange. I'm not going to go into what I found to be strange. Lo and behold, this week, this person came out with a supplement. And guess what it's for?
Hair loss.
Hair, nail, and skin. And the testimonial that he read on his current ad was about hair. I just threw up my hand.
There you go.
I just threw up my hand. Something else transpired, which was very questionable, but there's no need to put that on the air. But and I'm also going to say this. I'm going to state this clearly. I like what this guy does. I follow some of what he does. Actually, I've been following it probably before he did it. I'm older than this guy. And I wrote about some of what he talks about in the original The Bald Truth.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm a fan. And I think in general, if people follow what he preaches, they're going to be much healthier people. But it just goes to show you that everyone is full of shit. Everyone is trying to essentially just pick your brain.
Mm-hmm.
They're not. There's a little bit of dishonesty there. Why not just say, "Hey, look, I'm coming out with this thing. I really want to know your opinion," and I would have given the guy my opinion, and I wouldn't have bashed his product or anything. Just been like, maybe that'll work, maybe it won't. I don't really think so. Maybe it's better if you just tell them to eat correctly. I think it'll have more benefit. But when you tell people just to eat correctly, you can't sell shit.
Yeah, you can't make any money on it.
But. And again, there's nothing wrong with it. It was just the way things transpired that I'm just like, oh, again, sadly, every time I give somebody the benefit of the doubt, there's a reason why my life is spent, sadly, looking at everyone with a jaundiced eye. And he will sell. He already does, because he's on every major podcast. He will sell this product to tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of people.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway.
It is what it is. Okay.
But I did feel tall. 888-659 888-659-3727 is the toll-free number. No, and honestly, I'm not saying this guy's not a nice guy. I'm just saying that, he saw an opportunity to get some information. He didn't provide full disclosure as to why he wanted this information. And this was the reason that I found out why he wanted to basically find me again in a store.
Well, moving forward, the next time a influencer or someone that's known comes to you and starts picking your brain, just stop them and say, okay, do you have a product coming out anytime soon? Or are you thinking of having a product coming out anytime soon? Yes or no will determine how the conversation goes.
Well, in all fairness, like I said, I introduced myself to him. We locked eyes, and I don't know if he recognized me from Adam or not, but we locked eyes. Just, that was it. Like it wasn't like I saw him, I looked at him, and then he'd like look down and kept moving on with his business. We locked eyes and kind of just both stopped. I put out my hand and I told him who I was, and he told me, and then he started asking me questions, and that's how it started. But the conversation ended. I thought I was on my way, and then he came back.
Tracked you down. Yeah, he came back.
So of course my first thing is like, I guess I'm going to have to get back to work now because he's going to want me on a show and all this stuff, and then the Bald Truth is going to take off all over again, and then I'm going to, Joe's going to be happy about that. But no one wants the truth out there, because if we get out there in that way,
and there it is.
If we tell the truth, no one can sell that shit. No one can sell the truth. I mean, I guess I did for a very long time, and I figured out a way. But on that level, en masse, the truth does not sell. 888-659-3727. I thought it was a nice little story. I would love to tell you guys who this was, but I actually have some respect for him. I'm also a nice guy, but I do have respect for him. I think that he's really put something out there that mainstream medicine, mainstream nutritionists, they didn't want to hear either. That's actually why I was a little disappointed that I guess this guy's willing to put out enough truth so I guess he could sell shit. But the whole truth, at least in hair, is going to be difficult to sell things. Certain things, at least what he is promoting at this point. 888-659-3727. Sorry for the rant, guys. I know you miss me on Fridays. You're stuck with Joe for the entire week.
Stuck is the right word.
Let's take a call. Hey, you're on the air. Who's this and where are you calling from?
It's Morty from Brooklyn.
Hey, Morty, what's happening, man? How are you?
What's up,
I
man?
really need to look at my caller ID more often.
I got you guys on first caller. I love it.
Good for you, man. Congratulations, Mazel Tov. What's happening?
Thanks. Not much, man. I'm just listening to you carrying on about somebody being duplicitous with you with respect to product endorsement and development, and it is.
Morty always wants to get us in trouble. Did I say duplicitous? Did I actually?
Okay, no.
That's a very. It has a really strong negative connotation. It almost, makes somebody evil.
Lots of accusation in there. Lots of accusation.
Okay, forgive me. Sorry, I like the $50 words. I can't help it,
It's a good word.
There we go.
Yeah.
That's a
but anyway,
stupendous word.
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go. There's another one. I'm not surprised, and I'm glad that you guys are out there telling the truth, despite all of the hucksters and people out there, snake oil salesmen and all that type of stuff. So kudos to you guys for that. No, I'm just, like I said, I'm home on a Friday, and I'm not with my mom. My mom's staying with my sisters, so I was like, okay, I got a chance to call into the Bald Truth on Friday.
Good for you.
During the week, it's easier to reach out to Joe, because during the week it's just easier.
But it's only a fraction of the fun, I can tell you that. I mean that's just observational.
Well, that's true. You get a laugh out of me a lot quicker than Joe does, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, things are going okay. Things are going all right. And Joe is putting on a great show during the week. So
it's invaluable.
I love calling him there as well.
It's invaluable.
Putting in an amazing show there. Keep it up, Joe. I love the work. I know that you were playing around with different time slots. I would suggest that you might want to do one day you might want to do an early slot for one part of the Earth, and then another day you might want to do a later slot for a different part of the Earth. It might make might make it a little bit easier to do it. I know you're talking about the idea, so just a suggestion.
I hear you, but then that means I have to coordinate different times during the day, and that's just too much. It's one time during the day or nothing. People can stay awake, they can wake up early. I'm not going to change the time slot. The only consideration I had was maybe to cut it from 2 hours to 1 hour. And it may still wind up being like that, just based on whether or not I get phone calls, because that's the way it has been since the beginning. And same thing on this show. It's like if we don't get calls, it's like, okay, great, thanks guys, bye.
Yep.
Because it's a call show.
Yeah, for sure.
We'll see.
Cool. And T. Spencer, I was talking to a prospective patient for Dr. Coles, and he brought up a little something, and I thought I'd share it with the class. This is a person who has a fair amount of hair, but it's thinning fast, and they're like, they want to preserve it. And they asked me about PRP, and I talked about my personal experience with it, which wasn't, was less than spectacular, but a lot of it had to do with the fact that I was starting with concrete. Yes. And so my thinking there is that if you have hair, that hasn't completely gone, that treatments, regardless of what they are going to be more effective than if you don't have anything to start with. And the analogy I gave is if you've got $100 in your wallet and you've got a 4x investment, you'll end up with $400. But if you only got 2 cents in your wallet, you're only going to end up with 8 cents, which is still not a lot of money, no matter how you measure it.
That's actually a good analogy. And how did this guy take it?
Well, he definitely picked it up. It made sense to him. He was like, well, how about what do you need for coverage? And they talked about density. Well, I guess density is the best way to look at it. Is that typically you're going to want to have at least 40 to 50 hairs per square centimeter in order to obscure the scalp, which means that you have a lot less distance to travel to get coverage than I did.
Right.
So and that's the other reason why it's effective. These types of treatments can be more effective if you still have hair on your head. So
let me ask you, how do you like selling hair transplants?
I don't sell the hair transplants. Matter of fact, I try my best to be as honest as I can about other things besides the hair transplant, specifically the medical therapy and the regenerative therapy.
I just wanted to hear you on your heels and explain yourself. Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah. No, I'm. Look, I am a what's the word? I am a disciple of the Spencer and Joe show, and that means that I unless it's obvious that a person needs one, and they've exhausted all of their other alternatives, including shaving your head, then that's it. And basically all I'm doing really is offering one man's experience to somebody who wants to listen to it. That's all I do.
And listen, I think Dr. Cole having you there as opposed to other people who either may have had hair transplants or not, or just there to work on a commission basis. I think that he's doing his patients, his prospective patients, a real service. I honestly think in the end he's doing himself a service, because he knows whoever gets in the chair is going to at least have enough information to know that if something goes wrong, it may not be John's fault.
Yeah.
Yeah. And like I said, I've witnessed it myself where he will turn people away. So.
Of course. I've known the guy for 20 some odd years.
Yeah,
sure. Absolutely. That's the way it works. But I think you were probably one of, and I know that Joe was in his day, one of the better consultants for someone to go to, whether you're working for John or anybody else. You knew what it took to do your due diligence, to do your research. It took you a long time to pull the trigger. You know the entire scope and all the possible pitfalls. And, you know, you seem like a pretty honest guy.
Thank you.
It depends on how much money comes in.
Well, at the moment, as far as money goes, not much,
Right.
not at all, as a matter of fact. So, the occasional dinner here and there.
I know how that feels. By the way.
Yeah. So, and no money coming in. Yeah, I took your advice, Spencer, and that is basically I have not quit my day job. So there you go.
Yeah, good for you.
Good. Good. Keeping it above board. Right on.
Yeah.
For sure. I mean, yeah, I've had some really great stories. I mean, one of them was I talked to Joe about this the other day. It was about a patient who had, who's got uncontrolled type 2 diabetes, and not a patient, but actually he was a consultant. And so he went to go see Dr. Cole. He called me back today to tell me how it went, and he was very pleased with the consult. But Dr. Cole told him the same thing. The other interesting thing he talked about, which I didn't even know, is that statins can thin hair.
Absolutely.
And I was like, really? Yeah.
100%. Those things that's poison for you, man. In my opinion.
Really? Oh, no, because I'm on 10 milligrams of atorvastatin.
So you worry about lowering your cholesterol?
Well, I'm not worried about it because my cholesterol was high until I got on them. So it's fine now.
All of you guys, man. All of you guys. I don't even know what to say anymore. I just don't know what to say. If you actually look at the stats of statin and look at, comparing how many lives are actually saved by statins as opposed to, just the control, no one would take a statin. No one would take a statin. I'll find the name of this doctor podcast that you should listen to. But I can tell you that.
Yeah, because
I have a cousin who's a cardiologist. He's pretty well known, and he told me years ago, if anyone ever wants to put you on a statin, do not do it.
Yeah, I've been resisting the statins until a little bit over a year ago, and then I got on the lowest possible dose. So.
Look, I'm not a doctor, and I'm not giving medical advice. But if people are still under the belief that cholesterol from food or having a slightly higher cholesterol than normal, even a much higher cholesterol than normal, is going to put you in danger of a heart attack or a stroke, you probably want to consider seeing another doctor. Talk to Cole about it.
Interesting. Well, yeah, I'm going to now. This is the first I heard right now from you and today, hearing it indirectly, that statins thin hair. I was like, oh my God, I didn't even know that. I'm like, fuck, now get off this fucking statin top of everything else.
They do more than thin hair. There's nobody I know who's on a statin that doesn't eventually have a relatively rapid breakdown of their body.
Wow. Goodness.
Now, again, I'm not a doctor. This is all anecdotal. But honestly, if a doctor wanted to put me on a statin, I'd be like, you know what? I'll make some dietary changes. I'm not going to worry that much about my cholesterol unless it's like totally out of control. And usually when you get to that point, it's really genetic anyway. It's not even the food that you're eating.
Yeah, I can tell you this much, that when I was living in Florida, my numbers were a lot better than they are here in New York, and most of it I suspect is to do with lack of sleep and stress more than anything. So. But, be that as it may, if we're dealing with, honestly, the good news is I can actually see blue sky now, whereas a couple of days ago we had sepia skies. Yeah, but yeah, that's the size of it. Thank you once again, Spencer. Once again for saving my ass.
Well, listen, I'm not telling you to get off any medication. I'm not a doctor. But if you've noticed any change in your memory, if you've noticed any change, like even when you're just trying to have a conversation, if you're having a little trouble trying to find a word here and there, big side effect, even small doses of statins. And hair loss, for sure.
Interesting. All right. Well, I will do that. What I might do is I might want to wean myself off of it. At this point.
I'm not telling you to get off of them. I'm not telling you to get off of them. I'm just telling you that you're on them. You should understand what the reality of being on a statin is, and that it may not be in your overall best interest, and you should speak to your doctor about it. Not necessarily the doctor who prescribed the statin, but maybe find somebody a little bit more of an open-minded cardiologist.
Yeah, I'm definitely talking to Cole about it because I'm seeing him tomorrow.
Yeah.
All right. And this is another great thing about it. Okay, take it easy, fellas.
Good luck.
Have a good one.
Take care.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
I mean, no wonder he's selling hair transplants. Someone put him on statins and he's lost his mind.
He's lost his damn mind. And he forgot he had a hair transplant. So makes it kind of difficult, I guess. I don't know.
Phone number is 888-659-3727. People worrying about, adverse sexual side effects from fucking finasteride. Holy cow, man.
Yeah.
I mean, I like to find some of these studies, but I mean, statins are the most prescribed medication currently in the United States, and there is a reason for that. And everybody is told to put a patient on statins if their cholesterol is slightly out of normal limits.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And that's only growing because more and more people are unhealthy. Cholesterol's up.
Yeah, but it's not even unhealthy. There's more and more people who are going on carnivore-type diets, who are eating more saturated fat, who may have higher cholesterols, overall cholesterol, LDL, But now they're finding out that maybe there's really no correlation between heart disease, stroke, and high cholesterol, or cholesterol, high cholesterol that's induced by diet.
Yeah.
I'm not a doctor. I don't know, but this is information that's been out there for at least a decade, and it's starting to finally cross over into mainstream medicine. I would not take a statin.
We shall see.
I have no problem taking 5 milligrams of finasteride. You can't get me close. You cannot get me to take a statin.
I can see it. I can see the Reddit post now. Spencer Kobren said not to take statins.
No, I'm not a doctor. You do it. You guys do whatever you want, but I wouldn't do it for myself. I see friends of mine. They're put on this medication. They break down before my eyes.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, there's like all these other inflammatory markers, and they're having joint pain. They don't understand why does my head hurt? Why am I getting migraines? Why is this happening?
Mm-hmm.
Based on a number that they don't that science doesn't really understand now, and there's so much contradictory information. The whole fucking system is fucked up. 888-659-3727 is a toll-free number. Let's see who this is. Hey, you're on the air. Who's this, and where are you calling from?
Yeah, this is John from the Bay Area. How you guys doing?
John, what's happening, my man?
Good, John. How are you?
Oh, thank you, Joe. Thank you, Spencer. Hey, you guys are the best, as I've said before, and I mean it. And it's all good. But so check this out. So last week, I loved it when you had that undercover doctor on there. I mean, I thought that, and then I went back and I saw back in 2018 you had an undercover tech on there, and I know that doctor kind of alluded to the fact that he would love to do more, whatever. I'm just thinking, hey, Joe, if I were you, with your daily thing, by the way, you should keep it at the exact same time. The worst thing you can do is change time. Keep it at the same time so people always can kind of know what time you're going to be on. Otherwise, they'll never remember what day is what time, and everyone will get all confused. That's disaster. So keep it at the same time. I'd have one day a week of that doctor or something. That undercover stuff is incredible. That is just, to listen to that is unbelievable.
Well,
and that guy loves doing it.
I have some funny clips of him. Basically, he's in the shadows. You could see some on my Instagram at Spencer Kobren. But yeah, I mean, I would love to do it more often. But honestly, I think undercover doc is lazy by nature.
Well, I mean, if you promised him, Spencer, in the show, like a 10-minute or 20-minute segment every Friday, and let him go to 2 clinics a week, I just think that is so incredible. And I know nobody likes
Yeah, but,
snitch,
but because he's undercover doc, he's not going to get any leads in air quotes because he's undercover. No one's going to know who he is. So if I was able to say, put your name out there undercover, and you'll get people who are interested in going to see you, that would be some incentive for him. But can't do that. Otherwise, it just wouldn't be undercover. It wouldn't be funny. It wouldn't be fun. And he get a lot of shit. He get a lot of shit from his colleagues.
Exactly. That's the big problem.
Well, he probably already is already. So is he completely? There was something about magicians, world magic tricks revealed, and it was a special, and it did incredibly well. This magician actually revealed these secrets. That's the ultimate code. And for a doctor to do that is for in the industry like this. I mean, he's done it so far. I mean, the question is he a good hair transplant doctor himself?
Yes.
And it sounds like that he loves doing it. I mean, I don't understand what you're saying, Spencer. Why wouldn't he? I mean, how has he gotten what he's gotten? Does he talk to people? How has he gotten the information he's gotten so far? How did he get what he said last week? It was unbelievable.
He's been in the industry for 30 years. He knows everybody in the field, like I do. He has personal conversations. He's invited to clinics and to work with other people, and he goes to all the conferences, and he's aware of all the happy horse shit that goes on behind the scenes.
I hung out with him last year in Istanbul.
Yeah.
I see. So he could discern information, gather information, almost like an undercover police officer. But if he's willing to do that, what better resource can you get than somebody like that? I would put him on once a week, and Spencer, I would put him on. I'm just saying, as a listener, as a consumer of both of you, your websites, your information. That it's like 60 Minutes. That's what made 60 Minutes such a hit show in the beginning until they kind of changed it. They would always surprise. Everything was undercover. And in this industry, that is so valuable to have somebody like that because these fancy because people don't know. And of course they do good work and not good work, but still just to give some insight, that's the most valuable insight you can have. Some of the most valuable insight you can have, really, because you really don't know. And if he's willing to do it, if he's doing a mitzvah, he's doing a severe mitzvah. If he's actually willing to do it, I tell you, I would love I would love to know that guy's name. I'd go get my surgery with him.
Listen to this. Listen to this. Take a breath.
Talking to him, I said, "So, Doc, are you actually going to be the one that's going to hold the drill and take 3,000 units out of my scalp?" He goes, "Oh, hell no. I'm not going to do that. I'm a plastic surgeon."
I almost spit my wine on the microphone just now.
That's serious work. I'm not going to do that. Anyway.
That's serious work.
That was his attitude. I said, "So what do you do?" And he goes, "I just supervise."
All right, so that's the reality. And I have probably a couple of hours of clips just like that.
But then claim he can name names. I'd like him to name names, call people out. Call these clinics out?
You're naive, dude. I love you. You're a good guy, but you're really naive. The fact that he even did that and was willing to come out while he's still practicing. You have to understand how political medicine is in general.
Mm-hmm.
These guys would come after. These guys would come after him, not just within the field, not just within the organizations. They would come after him. They would come after him online, anonymously, and try to destroy his reputation. These people are pure evil.
Yeah,
I've dealt with it for 30 years. Now they can't. They can't do anything to me. They tried. Trust me. In ways that I would think would blow your mind.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I bet.
You get between a man and his money, or you get between an organization and their influence and their money. You are public enemy number one. And the fact that he's willing to put his voice out there, it's telling. I had a woman for a while. We called her Undercover Tech, and she was amazing. And she just disappeared. She wouldn't do it anymore. Maybe someone recognized her voice or whatever it is, but she was in fear of her job.
She could disguise her voice. That's what makes it such good radio, though. I get it, but that's what makes it such good radio. Maybe have that doctor disguise his voice so you're saying that, of course.
Take a breath. Take a breath. Take a breath.
No, you cannot name specific doctors.
This guy won't take a breath.
With doctors who have bought into this idea.
I'm going to play it again for you. So take a breath. Take a breath.
I have seen things that I can't unsee. And in the last year or so, I've started working more and more with doctors who have bought into this idea of, we can buy this expensive piece of equipment, go and just run with it without, taking time to learn anything or train their staff. I know what I'm about to say is kind of a very critical statement, but what these physicians are interested in just buying an expensive piece of equipment and jumping into hair transplant, what they're being sold is a lie. It is a blatant lie.
There you go. How do you feel about that?
Well, that's what we need. That's powerful stuff. That's good radio too. That's why I wish we could keep. You could. I'm just thinking out loud that you can continue to have either a new tech, maybe disguise their voice, or have the doc disguise his voice and talk. Continue. I get it where you can't name specific.
I have it. I'll just let you guys know. I have an entire series, Undercover Doc and Undercover Tech. I still have all the content. We are going to put it up online, and I have spoken to a few other people who want to do it, but they're concerned. So, talking about changing their voices, we can change their voices. We can make that happen. But there's also a level of cadence. Some of what these people say are. There will be people in the industry who might recognize who they are just based on specific experiences that they're going to describe. So every time I speak to these guys, they're just like, well, if I say this, this person's going to know this. This person's on the board of governors of the ISHRS. This is going to get me in trouble. I'm not going to be able to go up the ranks here. I'm not going to be able to do that. I have, and part of me just wants to put it out on the air again. I have somebody one of the Grand Poobahs, who I think is going to be the Grand Poobah soon, who essentially said on camera that it really, you need no real distinction except to be a DO or an MD to be a member of this particular organization, which is the organization that tries to monopolize the industry. And most of the doctors who become board certified by the American Board of Hair Restoration Surgeons are the worst doctors in the industry. Not my words, his words. And this guy is a big deal now in the main organization. I put that online, and I spoke about this before. It was like up there for like an hour and a half. Because
he lost his mind.
We recorded the segment at FUE Europe in 2019. He said it. I didn't say it. He lost his fucking shit. He demanded that it be taken down. He contacted everybody he could. Now, I could have been a jerk about it and said, look, you recorded the segment. This is my content. I can do whatever I want with it. But that's not who I am. I'm not here to try to extort somebody or try to, put them in an uncomfortable position. But now as time goes by, I'm thinking, it may be a good time to do it again.
Well, I mean, you don't want to get embroiled in lawsuits or
I can't get sued.
Stay away orders.
I mean, anyone can sue you for anything, but it would be the end of this guy's career, and it would be the end of his mental well-being if he tried to come after me.
That's the thing. So if you don't think they'll sue you or some kind of cease and desist kind of thing, it's First Amendment speech. It's totally protected speech. I just think that it's such a good service to the listeners, the consumers. And that's what it's all about. There have been a lot of successful shows that have helped a lot of people. I mean, what if you have people willing to do it? All I'm saying is I really enjoyed last week and I think that doctor is very good on the radio. I think he's very funny. I think he has a good communication style.
You're giving him a big head now. If he's listening, he's going to call in now. He's going to want time every minute. Don't get this guy started. I can't get off the phone with this guy sometimes for 2 hours.
But give him 10 minutes a week. Or Joe, you should give him some time once a week.
10 minutes?
And that way you could promote him.
That's
Spencer
impossible to give this guy 10 minutes.
Okay.
Dude, every time Undercover Doc calls in, my text is going bing, bing, bing. Joe's like, next. No, I'm just kidding, Joe.
All right. Well, I'm just saying, okay. Well, at least it's good. Well, maybe you tell him that, look, I can only do 15 minutes. That's it. I can only do 15. That's it. And let him call, and you could promote it. I think that's a good kind of thing, a good segment within your show to have. It just seems to me that's because that slaps you in the face, and even the undercover tech. That's those are people in the trenches.
I actually think Undercover Tech is as compelling, if not more compelling, because what you will learn about what really like doctors know a certain amount. An undercover doc is willing to talk about certain things, but he's not necessarily willing to talk specifically about his colleagues. But he'll talk about or the people that he knows. He'll talk about people that he goes to visit that may be kind of outside of the core hair transplant guys. But the undercover techs, and they're traveling everywhere. Even techs who are working full time for somebody. Some of these girls will travel on the weekends and do work for obscure doctors. The shit that you will hear is it's intense, man. It's truly intense. People throwing away tissue, or if physicians take out too much tissue or too many grafts, and they made a deal and the patient paid for, say, 2,000 grafts, but they somehow extracted, even if it was FUE, 2,200 grafts. They'll be like, look, we have an extra 200 grafts here. Do you want them? If so, give us your credit card. These guys are under anesthetic.
Yep.
Unbelievable. See, that's so valuable, too, because they can give you the information that you can ask the doctor when you go for your consultation. Because if you're armed with that knowledge of what doctors may do or what offices may do that's unethical or incorrect or what have you, that's information that the consumer can ask. Do you do this? Do you do that? Do you ever throw away the grafts? Do you ever do this? Those people would not know.
You're coming to the show late in the game. You've only been listening for what, a year and a half, 2 years?
Yeah.
Yeah. So we've done it. We've done all that stuff. I'm not saying we don't need to do it again because our listeners are new every week, but just to explain to you the difficulty of making that happen, and also just even the apathy, even the people that say, you know what, I like to do this, after they do a couple of segments or make a few phone calls, they're just like, it's too much work for them. They're not that interested.
I get it. I know.
I'm the only idiot that's been doing the same thing for 26 years and doesn't stop.
Hey, Spencer. No, but as the industry changes a little bit, new doctors coming in and out, I just think you can't have enough of that. And I know you guys go over everything, and you arm the consumer with a lot of information. You arm me with a lot of information. I'm just saying that if someone tells you this kind of misconduct or wrongdoing, which let's just say it is what it is, they're basically snitching about misconduct. That's what it is. And to know that, it really, I think that's powerful information. I really do. I think it's a powerful way to communicate information is in the form of misconduct by one person or by an office to the consumers, and in the way of a undercover person.
Well, then you're definitely never going to get a hair transplant, dude.
Well, hey, I've done. You know what? You never. I haven't so far. I mean, like I said, I would love the results. It's just a process getting cut on, having to hear, going through. You have to be a trooper, and I think a younger person who can withstand pain, who's willing to withstand a lot. I think once you get older, you're less inclined to go through with all of it. The risks outweigh the benefits, or the pain, the sacrifice outweighs the potential. The older you get, the more the sacrifice outweighs the potential benefit. When you're 25 or 30, 35, and you'll go through anything to get your hair back. That's why I get it why those kids go to Turkey and get ripped off and get mangled. Because at that age, my God, that's really...
I did the UK show this week with Spencer Stevenson. We had a guy called in, and he was 51 years old, I think, or 52 years old. And he went to see, had surgery with Dr. Bisher in Turkey. And Obviously, she's more expensive. She's an accepted member of the IHRS. I think she worked with Joe. Is that correct, Joe? Yeah. And
yes.
And he chose. It was less expensive than having done the UK, but it was still not inexpensive, especially if we're going to Turkey. He said it was the best decision he's ever made in his life, and it changed his life, and he wished he hadn't waited so long. So this is an older guy. So, he was married, children, I think, but he was
not for
unhappy. Not for long. He was unhappy for a long time, and he made that decision to have it done. And for him, it was just as compelling as if he was 25 years old.
But I would submit to you, Spencer, that is the minority of people getting hair transplant. I'd say the majority, and again, you're the expert, not me. Okay, clearly, obviously, I'm a novice. It appear to me, just in my novice research, are basically, and Joe, you probably, having worked in the office so long in Canada, et cetera, are under 40. I get it, some older people married that don't quite fit the demographic are going to have life-changing experiences. That's great. But it seems like normally they're under 40, and they're at the stage where they've been devastated, and they're doing it to improve their lives, work life.
I would submit to you that the happiest patients are the oldest patients.
I will submit to you that it depends on where, if you're talking about under 40, most hair transplant patients are under 40 or however you want to word that. It depends on where they're having their hair transplant or what region of the world you're talking about. If you're talking about Turkey, absolutely. I'd actually wager that most of them are under 30.
Yes.
Under 35. But when you're talking about areas where it's not so cheap, such as North America, I wouldn't say most of them are under 40, but I would say that the majority of them are between probably 32, 33, and 55. And that's based on what I believe is the normal type of procedures being performed in North America, Canada, the U.S., as well as Europe, because in Europe it's still pricier than it is in general than it is in Turkey. But when you have easier access based on a much lower financial threshold of entry, then yeah, you are going to get a lot more patients that are not just under 40, but also under 35, under 30, because look, patients that are in, let's say 24, 25, or even 20, when they start to see the first signs of hair loss or their hair loss has really progressed aggressively, their hairlines are fresh in their minds, what it used to be like. So they've been losing their minds for just a few years. There are a lot of guys out there that have been really wrestling with the issue for many years, especially before the onslaught of cheap clinics came along. But I think in general, if you're going to talk about the age and the demographics of who's getting a hair transplant, it really depends on where they're going or where you're going to come up with these numbers, I guess, for these ages. And
well, I'm just saying the younger people. And the reason why I think it's relevant is because they're willing to go through several transplants. The pain when you're younger, you don't care so much about the pain, the recovery. You have more time, frankly, and you're stronger. You recover. You heal. Well, we can argue about do you heal quicker or not, but you get more wherewithal to do something.
I think that you have. And I'm going to submit this to you. I think that you have more information than most people your age about the reality of hair transplant surgery. So you're making these assessments based on spending so much time listening to us and really educating yourself. And your personal bias, your personal preference is, you know what, I am older now. I'm doing okay, like we told you. I have enough hair. Do I want to go through this pain? There are people your age, 60 years old or however old you are, that are willing to go to the ends of the earth, just like a young guy. and deal with this because they think, look, I want to live the rest of my life with hair, and now may be a good time, and they're willing to do it. But they're not.
I'd like to do it too. I'd like to do it too. It's just that it's not an easy trigger to pull.
Right, we talked you out of it because we told you the truth. Like, hey, look, man.
And I appreciate it, and that's why I haven't done it. I put the brakes on it, and I put the brakes on it,
right?
Because of that. You guys really helped me, and I'm just thinking, boy, when I step back and think about it, it's like, whew. I mean, because you get emotional, you get upset. Maybe somebody will say something to you, and you'll get and so you're getting your transplant almost out of emotion rather than reason. And that's when at least with me anyway. Whenever I start doing things out of emotion, that's when I get into trouble. And so when I was really as gung-ho as I was, you guys kind of gave me the reason and put me away from the emotion.
I was out the other night. I had a guy that, I don't know, he had a couple of drinks in him, and he said something about, he's like, do you use hairspray? And I'm like, yeah, I feel this. I said, it's like a rock. And this is a bald guy. And I said, the good news is, I feel very fortunate that I have enough hair to spray. And I just shut his ass down. But, little incidental comments like that, these throwaway comments, it's kind of like, I can understand why people would be like, I know that if I had a hair transplant, there's a chance that I would maybe be able to use, I don't know, mousse or gel and put my hair back, slick back, and I wouldn't have to use hairspray. And maybe that one comment, if it really affected me, would be something I would never have to deal with again. And
the fact that I would just feel more confident over. I mean, granted, I would feel more confident. I would feel better, but I'm willing to sacrifice some confidence, sacrifice that in exchange for not getting cut on. I mean, it's unfortunate. I wish I could have the best of both worlds. I know those comments really can't. Hey, I just like you talking about, Spencer, I get a comment like that, I'm going home that night and on the internet researching. Then I get upset. I go, I'm going to do this. You know what? I'm tired. I'm going to get this done.
Well, look.
And then you calm down.
No one would have asked me that in 1985 because everyone had hairspray in their hair. So that's how I look at it. I'm like, you know what? Go fuck yourself. Look at me. I'm 58 years old, and I hate to be. I don't mean to sound obnoxious, but the guy that asked me this was younger than me, and he honestly, the guy was like slightly hunched over. He had arms like spindles. He had no hair in his head. And yeah,
he was just jealous.
He's super wealthy.
Jealous, Spencer.
Super wealthy. We're having a drink at the club, whatever it is. I know what this guy does. But yeah, of course, I'm not saying he's jealous, but I'm just saying it's just, this is the mentality of people. So to me, I feel exceptionally fortunate that, yeah, I have to put on 12 cans of hairspray a month, I go through, whatever. Fuck it. I'm not worried about the ozone. Just kidding, people.
But okay, this is an important question. Spencer and Joe, don't you think that people get the hair transplant because of what other people are saying? That in their heart of hearts, they care.
Some
not,
people,
but they're
some people
doing it
might,
because of the way people react to them. No.
Well, it may be the way that they see people reacting differently to them as they go through the balding process. They're not getting as much attention, but usually it's more about, and that's something, especially if someone did get attention at one point in their life from the opposite sex or the same sex or whatever. Mm-hmm. I got to preface that now. I got to say that now. But
yes, you do. But
it's, I really think that it comes down to the way they see themselves in the mirror, because there's no doubt. I mean, this is a mind fuck. When you are seeing your hair change and your hair loss is eroding, and along with that, so is your self-esteem. Even if you still look pretty good, you don't feel the same. So I think it really has to do more with the way the person feels. Now, the offhand comments and maybe not getting a second glance at a bar or whatever it is, or maybe being rejected, more than normal.
Or having people say you look older. Have people say, oh, you can just kind of tell a younger person looks at you as if you're older. And the hair, in your heart, your gut, that if you had more hair, that you would look younger. That's the truth. And because of that, you don't look younger. That hurts.
Of course. I understand that. My whole thing is, and I'm guilty of wanting to maintain a youthful appearance, for sure. But I have my limits. Like, I won't dye my hair. I won't dye my beard. Now, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that, but I have never really seen it end well for people who do that, especially guys my age. I see the guys, my hair looks more salt and pepper in person than it does on camera and in pictures. Whatever reason, it doesn't pick up the white as much. So if you're looking at me now, just picture me with complete salt and pepper hair, like my beard. But to me, there's a certain amount of, what's the word I'm looking for, Joe? Not integrity, but
je ne sais quoi?
No, there's a certain amount of
dignity
with aging gracefully as well. Aging gracefully while taking care of your body. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. But I'm just look, when you're 75. Go ahead. I'm sorry, Joe. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was going to say, and some people could call it stupidity, but
Yes.
Why not just throw everything, including the kitchen sink, at it? But
I can shave.
There's a certain.
I shave. It takes off. It takes off like 5 years, but I look like an old baby.
Yeah.
So.
I'm just saying that. Look, when you're 75 or 80, I guess even that you're old. When you're old, you're old. But when you still, when you're 55 and 65, those years, if you can do something to get say you're 65 and you can do something to make yourself look 52, hey, that's pretty damn good. That's a big deal for a 65-year-old man to look 55.
Sure.
That's a big deal. That's a huge deal.
Absolutely.
Or a 70 or a 50 to look 40. I mean, whereas if you're 25 or 30, you're just trying to look yourself. You're trying to look, you're 25 and you're not trying to look 35. You're just trying to look 25 again. So, I'd love to, because I look young. If I had most of my hair back, I would look 10, 15 years younger. You know how that would change my life? I would love to do it, and it hurts me that I'm not, but I'm trying to use my mind and do the right thing and not do something.
Look, there's nothing better than picking up a girl and you wake up the next morning and you tell them how old you are. The look on their face is fucking priceless, man. Anyway, brother, listen, we're going to go.
All right.
We're going to go.
You very much.
Listen, listen, I don't disagree with you, and I absolutely, the idea of undercover doc and undercover tech was something I thought about many years ago. I wanted to make it into more of a program, and the people that I had essentially either chickened out or they didn't have the work ethic to move forward unless they were somehow getting some sort of compensation.
All right. Well, I just want to tell you how much I enjoyed that segment. I hope you do more.
And I'm not talking about you, undercover doc. I'm talking about other people. Anyway, we got to go.
All right. Thank you.
Take care. Bye-bye.
See you, buddy.
Phone number is 888-659-3727. He's drinking a little too much coffee this late in the afternoon, but he's always a great caller.
Always a great caller. Always appreciate him.
Let's see who this is. Hey, you're on the air. Who's this and where are you calling from?
Hey, it's the famous one. Undercover.
Undercover? What's happening, man? I'm glad you are listening to the show. Did you have a fan? You have a guy that's basically like, you got to have this doctor, this undercover doctor on every week, and he's got to name names. And I'm like, he can't name names. He's still got to make a living.
That's funny. That's funny. I did an informal survey, by the way. I've done this survey frequently. What do you think about women's preference over for picking a guy? Would they rather have a guy with hair or a guy who's fit?
That's interesting. I would say a guy who's
hair.
I mean, really fit or just like not fat. Because I would
they
say
don't want a guy who's like, obviously like a musclehead. But they definitely. Go ahead. What do you think? I got the answer for you. I've done this survey over years because I've been curious.
It's interesting, and I would say, I've spoken to women who it's all about hair. Sadly,
well,
but
I
do think that it's fit. I do think that fit is more important, but I don't think that women. And I'm going to. This is a long answer. I don't think that women necessarily understand that they're not as attractive to somebody who doesn't have the hair. They, in their mind, they think, well, hair loss, it's only hair, it's no big deal. They think of sexy bald guys, and that's why they make their decision when you ask them that question.
And I think that also depends on the demographic, like the age range of women that took the survey or answered the question. Are these primarily younger? Are they primarily, 40s? What's the age range of the women that were asked the question?
They're only exotic dancers, dude. Go ahead.
I've asked everybody from exotic dancers to seniors at the senior center this question. And the honest answer, if it's just the choice between those two items, they go for the fit guy. Because fitness, if you're thinking at all, if a woman's thinking at all of having any kind of a sexual relationship, they want you to be fit. They look at you, and if you're not, they're thinking, I don't care how much hair this guy's got. He's going to either keel over in the sack if he's older, or he's just not going to be sexy when the time comes. So that's what I found.
Well,
of course, there's a lot of other things.
I was watching a show that someone sent me a link to a show, and it's something, I think it's called like Find Me a Mate Abroad or Dating Abroad or something like that. And there was this old broad, she's like 50 years old, and that's a lot younger than me, but you know what I'm saying, Doc. And New York, typical New Yorker, like really like very high level in her career, going to Columbia to find a mate. And her number one criteria, besides the guy, making a good living, besides the guy, being fit and all this stuff, had to have hair. She would not. The first thing, does he have hair? He has to have hair. This broad is wearing literally a latex mask on her face of makeup. She's kind of like relatively thin, but kind of like, like these New York chicks who they're kind of like fat skinny, like they stay super thin, but they're not that fit. She's one of these chicks, older broad, with the little dog, the whole thing. And her criteria, the guy's got to have hair.
Well, that guy that doesn't have hair is lucky in this case because she's not interested in him. He's what do you call it? He dodged a bullet.
But she reminds me of every ball-busting chick that I grew up with in Manhattan.
Well, why would anybody want to be with her, though? The way she's presenting herself, too. I mean,
listen, that's just the way that it's. These people are just nuts, man. So I sent clips of this to people that I know, and they're all mortified. Now, would they be as mortified if she was, a hot, 35-year-old or whatever, a 45-year-old that really maintained herself well and wasn't wearing like this mask of makeup? And they'd still think it was a little obnoxious, but this particular person made it so much worse just because, like, I'm thinking to myself, have you looked at yourself in the mirror lately?
Yeah, but I will tell you this, it depends on what the person's stage in life is, too. Think about this for a minute. If you're actually in childbearing age and you're trying to consider a mate who's going to produce your children and stuff, I might try to dodge the bald gene if I were a woman. And I would try to dodge the bald gene if I were a man. Looking at women.
She's carrying the majority of the bald gene. That's the way it is. We used to think, it used to be, it's on both sides of the family. Well, we still know it's on both sides of the family. But now, recent studies in the last 7 or 8 years are finding out that maybe the women carry a little bit more of the gene, the bald gene.
Well, here's another interesting thing to mention. Well, the women patients that have come to me, they're either depressed because they're losing their hair, or they're on antidepressants and therefore losing their hair.
Right.
So the thing about them is, like, a woman with thinning hair, that's really an issue. I mean, that to me is
it's
something
heavy.
I look at and go, wow,
it's heavy.
She's really thin. Yeah,
it's heavy, but it's also an issue of, it's a silent epidemic. You just see the people who come to you. You don't see the thousands, the countless women who are walking around New York, Los Angeles, who are wearing hair. And when you see them wearing hair, as long as it looks natural, that's just part of life now. There's not a woman. I mean, if I walk down the street, Santa Monica Boulevard, wherever, around here, every blonde out there is wearing hair. You cannot find someone who doesn't have extensions. Non-existent.
Right. I agree. That's true.
I agree with that.
And during the pandemic, it was a mess, Doc. These girls couldn't get their hair done. I was just seeing it hanging off the threads. They were a wreck, and they couldn't.
I have a feeling.
Yeah, go ahead.
Some of that has to do with the fact that if you look at television and you look at the media, all the people in broadcasting news on television, all of the women have extreme enhancements.
You must be watching Fox News, because on MSNBC and CNN, I think they're actually going for the least attractive people. I'm just saying.
I'm not even saying Fox News. I'm saying network news too, in particular.
Yeah,
network news.
Yeah,
a lot of them have.
No, I would say conservative news. I think they definitely are spot on when it comes to picking their talent. I'm just saying, as a man.
Yeah, well, look at Jean Perot, though.
Absolutely.
I think one of her eyebrows is off kilter, or was it her eyelid job? One of them's half closed compared to the other. So
listen, the guy that called in wants to hear some undercover stuff. Give us some inside baseball so these guys could be entertained and know a little bit about the field, and so that Joe stops yawning.
Tonight?
Right now.
I don't have any new. I don't have any.
You don't need anything new. You've been doing this for 30 years. Tell us a story. Tell us an inside story of the insanity of this industry that a consumer might want to know.
Well, I'll tell you one, for example. Yeah. When you talk about going overseas to get a hair transplant, when the barriers to entry, as far as the barrier to get a hair transplant, the bar has been set so low with the cheap cost, that makes it affordable. Number two, when you come into an office in the United States, there's still a chance that the doctor is going to be ethical and try to steer you in the proper direction. However, due to social media, et cetera, Instagram photos, et cetera, and all that kind of nonsense, these young guys who are really in the most vulnerable mental state, when they go to Turkey, I don't think they're going to walk into an office over there where anybody's going to discuss the future of their hair, what resources they'll have left after a hair transplant, number one. And number two, these poor guys think that they want a Elvis Presley hairline. They think that that because they've seen pictures from Turkey where they do have very low hairlines in the culture, that it's okay to go over to Turkey specifically to get that ridiculously low hairline. Ridiculous in most cases because they're going to continue to lose more hair. I don't think they do much over there in order to help the patient in that regard at all. And by the way, here's another thing to consider: the malpractice issue in outside of the United States is very different.
Yes.
For example, I'm going to give you one. In Russia, for example, the clinics are all owned by businessmen.
Right.
And the doctor never gets sued. And so I don't know what the exact story is in Turkey, but based on the fact that they didn't want to shut down all those illegal clinics that didn't even have a doctor because they were getting so much tourist revenue, they basically try to give it a don't ask, don't tell thing. That is, they're doing 20 a day. Now we're going to just make them do one a day.
Well, and
we're not going to shut them down.
And there was also some, I'm trying to be diplomatic. There was also some claims that there were laws put in place where these surgeries had to be performed in very specific type of facilities, mostly hospitals. And there's also laws in place, supposedly, where you have to be a plastic surgeon to perform these surgeries. I don't think there's any laws in place stating that if you're not a doctor, you have to be anything. So, meaning that it seems to be fine for these clinics to be totally tech-driven in general. And there's some great technicians out there, but when you walked into some of these clinics, especially some of the clinics that you see online, you are essentially being greeted by close to teenage girls, maybe in their early 20s. And these are the ones that are in some cases, helping you, through the initial processes, after the consultation, which is usually done by a consultant through WhatsApp or some other, mostly WhatsApp. And you may or may not see a doctor. And if you do see a doctor, we know that they're maybe drawing a hairline, talking to you for a few minutes, possibly with a translator. And that's it. And so you're absolutely right, Doc. When I see these influencers online, when I see these young guys who are maybe not big influencers yet, but they're posting their experiences on their Instagram page to get likes and follows and to grow their presence, they have no idea what their future holds because they're not informed. And honestly, if they were informed prior to surgery, there is a percentage, not a large percentage, a lot of guys would roll the dice, but there's I think a significant percentage who would say, well, that's not a good idea. If I'm not going to look good in 3 years or in 5 years, I shouldn't do this. But that's not happening.
Well, in all
fairness, I'm just going to say, and I don't mean to cut you off, that's not always being said in this country by your colleagues. A lot of times they want to get somebody. This is the way the industry is built. Get somebody in a chair for one surgery because especially if you do a decent job, they will be back. It's not if, it's when.
Mm-hmm.
Personally, I never looked at it that way.
Never did. You're a unique case. You know your colleagues. Come on. You're a unique person.
In this country, yeah, sure. But here, in this country, you're selected theoretically to get into medical school in the first place because they've tried to evaluate you through an interview or whatever, trying to screen you so that they're not looking for people that are obviously just going into medicine for the money. They don't want that. Now, once you're in, you still have to have malpractice insurance, and you're held to a higher standard here. You can't just, act as if there's no repercussions if you do the wrong thing. And when I was paying for malpractice insurance, I was astounded at how high I was expected to pay to do a hair transplant. $20,000 was the rate, and I questioned the company about it, and they said it was because the expectation factor in hair restoration was such that it begot more likelihood of having litigation from unhappy patients. Therefore, they felt justified in charging the doctor 3 times what it might have been normally for the things that we actually do during a hair transplant. So, anyway, let me just tell you something. Once, a few months ago, I called in and we talked about the tale of 2 hairdressers. Do you remember that conversation at all? I had 2 patients in the same week that were both hairdressers. One of them was a guy that had sent me probably over the years 25 patients. And he came to me because he was about to go to Turkey because he couldn't reach me. And his mother said, try the doctor one more time. So he got me. And then instead of going to Turkey, we did his transplant and we did a strip. And he is so happy, so thankful that I can't get over the number of times he continues to just text me and tell me how happy he is. Now, the other guy came to me. He was a poor listener. He didn't hear me. He finally said after 10 minutes, like he was in a hurry, he goes, I like you. You're going to do my hair transplant. And then we did the transplant, and we did a strip, okay? Now, this guy, soon after we did it, within a week, one of his friends sent him an Instagram picture of how he looked after his trip to Turkey. So every single day for the next 6 months while his hair was growing in, he was haranguing me because he realized I didn't give him what that patient on the Instagram photo had gotten. Now, he didn't show me pictures that showed the guy's donor area, et cetera, but I know the guy was a class 6 bald guy, and the front half of his head was full.
Right.
So we know that, but I didn't get to see the donor. So long story short, he harassed me. Now, sadly, this guy, for some reason, his donor scar, which was perfectly normal, however, there was about 3 inches of it that hypertrophied for some unknown reason. Nobody knows why. It's the same scalp, and one portion of it was a hypertrophic scar. So by this time, I wasn't going to deal with him. I wasn't going to do it. By the way, his result came out perfect. based on the way I do a hair transplant, but it wasn't a turkey hair transplant. Okay? Now, with that one little section of hypertrophy scar, I wasn't going to deal with this guy again because he harassed me so much. I finally just said, look, you're going to go somewhere else. They can inject this scar. What I did also tell him is somebody might just take out that portion of your strip scar, close it up, and put some FUE grafts into the scar, and then you're on your way. But I'm not going to be the one that's going to do that for you. You're going to find somebody else. There's a lot of people out there. So that finally ended. I didn't hear from him anymore. He was threatening me with all kinds of stuff. Oddly, his boyfriend, without using pronouns, his boyfriend was an attorney. And his boyfriend was a nice guy. And on the day that he came for his surgery, he came like 20 minutes early, and he's asking me all the questions that he should have known the answer to before we even started.
Right.
His boyfriend shows up with the money and says to me with a smile, he goes, "Is he driving you crazy?" And I said, "He is, as a matter of fact. I'm thinking about canceling this case right now. And I wish that I had by the time it was all said and done, So anyway, both transplants were good, very, very good. And yet one guy was miserable. And because he didn't listen. He didn't hear a word I told him, not one.
Yeah.
He didn't look at before and after pictures with me, et cetera, et cetera. So, it was just an interesting thing because both of them were hairdressers. One of them was ecstatic. The other one, I don't know where he is.
And that's the nature of the game, and it's a cautionary tale for all of our listeners, and that's why we tell them all the time. You have to listen. You have to understand the reality, the entire scope, and all the possible pitfalls. You have to know what you're getting and why you're choosing a certain doctor, and that it's a practice of medicine. One doctor is going to do things in a certain way that he thinks or she thinks is going to be in your best interest. And you may see somebody else have something done that was probably not in their best interest, and that may look good today, but it's not going to serve them well in the long term. If that's explained and people have an open mind, then they make the best patients. But Doc, you know how I feel about this. Patient selection, man. If you see somebody that's even teetering on the edge, it's better for you to cancel the surgery.
Well, I was close to canceling it. I really was close. Once the guy was unhappy, he's such an unreasonable person. Nothing about him was logical. For example, he was going to go back to the guy that he had been referred to me. One of the patients that he met, a guy who owned one of those butcher type shops. Anyway, saw the guy in person, and he was going to go back and complain to him. And he was trying to make me feel bad for him that he and his boyfriend were fighting over it because his boyfriend knew the guy that referred me. I mean, the guy's unreasonable.
Well, there's a lot of that again, you're dealing with, and this is like I always tell Tillman, this is the profession we've chosen. And you're dealing, in many cases, more cases than we'd like to believe, with people who are, if they weren't on the edge before they started to lose their hair loss, this was their tipping point. Before they started to lose their hair, this was their tipping point. And once they decide to have surgery, it's a slippery slope, man. I personally think that everyone should be psychologically evaluated separate and apart from the clinic. And that evaluation should patients should actually be able to walk in, and this is with any cosmetic surgery, with that written evaluation, even before a patient has a consultation.
Not a bad idea.
So what do you think of a guy, though, who, for some reason, nobody knows the answer? He gets a hypertrophic portion of his scar. Think about this. Suppose somebody had done FUE on him. There's a chance that every single one of the punch scars was
correct.
Hypertrophy.
Yep.
Look, we know in the end that you save this guy from a fate that could have really destroyed his life. But at the time, he didn't know that, nor did he care. That's the reality,
I don't want to find out what he's thinking today. I could find out, but I don't want to become reacquainted with the guy.
Do not engage. That's all I'm saying. Do not engage. There's no reason to.
Correct.
But again, these are all. And this is important. No one really ever hears the doctor's side of what goes on in this specialty. We always talk about how effed up the physicians can be, and how how nuanced and difficult this surgery is, but people seldom hear what it's like to be in your shoes, especially when you're doing the right thing and you're dealing with unreasonable people. Now, I've had plenty of people over the years, you know this, Doc, who've contacted us through the IHRS or through other resources or through the Bald Truth, who are unhappy with their surgery for various reasons. And in the end, a lot of these people are unreasonable. Sometimes, and I would say it's fewer times that what they are thinking or saying is reality than, maybe something that's hyperbole or partially imagined, or maybe these guys are just a little OCD. But a lot of the complaints that we've received over the years are not complaints from people who've been butchered. They don't have the density that they wanted, or maybe the direction of growth was a little off on one side, which happens, relatively easy, to be corrected. And, they threaten doctors and they're willing to go online and extort money from them. It's a crazy world, man. It's a crazy business. If I were a doctor, there's no way I would do this. If I was a young guy right now, and I don't care if I was guaranteed, you're going to make $2 million a year or whatever, you guys are making, depending on the practice, $3 million a year. But you had to deal with all of everything that you have to deal with. There's no way. I would never do it.
Yeah.
In a million years. You got in a very unique time when it was a much smaller industry. You happened to be one of the guys that was doing it correctly. So you had a lot of happy patients. You had a kind of a boutique situation going. You weren't out there just grabbing the money. You were providing people with the truth. And so even your unhappy patients in general really didn't, most of them who were listening, they were prepared for a possible complication. And they didn't necessarily blame you.
Yeah. Well, it has changed. The industry's nothing like it was 20 years ago. Not the same. Not the same.
Not even close.
Well, I think
not even a niche anymore, actually.
Well, I think it sucks for the physicians who are in it, and I really try to, and that's why we want to bring some of the younger guys who have an open mind, who want to understand the reality of getting into this field, who want to actually help people. We want to bring them onto the IHRS, and we want them to learn how to do things the right way, and also understand what how to handle patients, and also how to do better patient selection. Most of these guys just don't know how to do that, and that's where the trouble comes in for both the patient and the physician. But I have to say that, this is not hyperbole. In the last 5 years, 7 out of 10 patients who contact us, they're unhappy. Now, it ranges from being dissatisfied to disfigured. But imagine that. Only 30% of first-time patients are happy with their procedures.
Well, it wasn't that way in my practice coming along. It was more like 95% were happy, honestly. That's the truth. But
all right, well, we're going to give you a lie detector test undercover.
Well, you can. You have one?
You're taking one right now. You just don't know it.
You just don't know it.
At least that's the impression I got, And the ones that are not happy are going to be the first ones that are going to come back, at you.
Well, with that said, this something that you doctors don't really understand is there's a percentage of men who don't come back. They're just like, they feel defeated. They feel that they've made a mistake. They're embarrassed to go back because they're like, why did I do this to myself? And you never hear from them.
Yeah.
There's a lot of them with really a great result that don't come back because they're just really happy and they don't bother.
That's true.
And I know that because I've had guys come back to me 20 years later, and I look at them and I say, "Damn, I was good." They say, and they chuckle and go, "I hope you're still good, Doc." And I'm looking at my original work from way back, and I'm thinking, "Wow, this is impressive." Not just some of the scars that were like almost invisible, but the the hair transplant itself. I mean, everything grew. It was just
Look, I love going down memory lane with you, Doc, but our callers want to hear some dirt.
dirt. Oh God.
Well, listen, think of some dirt next time. Give us a call. You have any interesting stories to talk about what's going on behind the scenes. I know that you have some interesting stuff that went down recently. You know, this is what people want to hear. The reality.
I got to go out and I got to do some more reconnaissance. You know, get some fresh.
You do.
Get some fresh stuff.
So just go online, look up, hair transplants in your area. The shit you will find it'll blow your mind.
I should go to the clinic that's got the $2 a graph billboards everywhere.
Yeah.
See what they're really up to. That will be it.
Go in there and see what you're willing to sell a guy who has basically a relatively full head of hair, especially for your advanced years. How do you like the way I put that?
Maybe I'll go in there with some unreasonable request, like, I have my beard moved to my scalp and see what they say.
You know what? I can guarantee you there's going to be someone who could say, well, we could do something. We could do that. We could do a little bit of that for sure.
That would be priceless. That would be very, very funny. Actually.
All right, Doc. Well, we're gonna take another call. Always appreciate it. When you get your shit together, we'll do some more segments.
All right.
Sounds
good. Basketball game coming up tonight. Big one. Big game coming up.
Well,
I'm looking forward to.
Look forward to it. Enjoy it.
Enjoy that.
Okay.
Take it easy. Have a couple of drinks on me. Take care.
Okay.
All right. Bye. He's a little tired tonight in Recovery Doc. 888-659-3727. Let's see who this is. Hey, you're on the air. Who's this and where are you calling from?
Hey, this is Steve from Texas.
Steve, what's happening?
Hello,
man?
Steve.
Hi, Joe. Hi, Spencer. How are you guys?
I can't complain.
Good. Doing well. Thank you. How are you?
Good. So talking about bad hair transplant clinics, I was just at the barber shop like 3 hours ago, and in the waiting room on the TV, there was a commercial from a big hair transplant chain that starts with a B. I'm sure everybody knows who I'm
Bosley?
Bosley?
Yeah, I just wasn't. I wasn't sure I was allowed to say the name, but yeah, Bosley.
Sure.
And they have the audacity to call themselves the number one. Do you guys know that? In their commercial, they say they're the number one.
They've been saying that for decades.
Yeah. The most experienced, the number one hair transplant. And there was a time when that was the case. And they may do the most volume in the U.S. now. I'm not sure if they still do, but they probably do.
Right, but volume doesn't equate to quality. So
Did they say they provide the best quality, or they just said they're number one?
They just said they're number one, and maybe I just don't know this because I'm a bit younger, but I'm smart enough to know that they're definitely not the number one. So, but it was just funny, and then I was just thinking about all the people that see that commercial and just do the consultations, and end up disfigured, and just with subpar results, and very sad what's happening.
I can tell you this in general. Overall, Bosley has gotten much better. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't like when I started, when we were getting really significant amounts of complaints, people who believed they were disfigured, and people, they were still doing scalp reductions, and all kinds of really horrific stuff, in my opinion. And they were using larger grafts. They weren't even using microscopes, even the first few years when I started. And it really took them a big amount of, let's just say, financial pressure and pressure from the industry and from what we were doing for them to switch and change the infrastructure of their practice. But over the years, they've gotten much better. But the truth is, it's a company that's, connected to a publicly held company, right, in Japan. They have shareholders and all this stuff, and they're part of the hair club. It's all under the same umbrella. And the bottom line is they got to make a profit, and that's how it's driven. And it's unfortunate. You know, I mean, even though they've gotten much better in general, they have some decent doctors and good staff. If someone asked me, I would be like, look, I mean, you got to really know who this doctor is, who their staff is, how long they've been performing surgery, what type of surgery they're performing, and speak to their patients. But you can get a decent hair transplant these days at certain Bosley clinics. I just want to be fair to
But do you think they, follow the general guidelines of, hair angulation and, proper density and everything? Or
there are some clinics, some offices that do. You have to realize that essentially the doctors are contracted. Their staff is contracted. If it's a good doctor with a good staff, then yes, they do for sure. But look, it's just unfortunately it's been sold as a commodity forever. They were really the OGs as far as selling this as a commodity, and they led the way as far as how the industry operates. And that was not good, ever. So while I'm giving them a break, and I know there's some patients who've had decent experiences, and I do big volume, it's a chain clinic. They're selling hair. That's it. They're selling the dream. They're providing coupons in some cases. They're claiming that they're number one. What does that mean? What does number one mean? Are they number one most complaints in hair restoration? Number one in hair restoration? Number one?
It's very ambiguous.
Who knows?
It's very ambiguous. And I look at this I agree with what Spencer was saying about how they've certainly improved over the years. They have actually upped the standards at their own clinics, but that's based on potential. I don't want to say potential medical requirements that haven't manifested yet, state by state. So they were hedging their bets, and they made some investments in personnel, and that's obviously a smart thing to do. But my position is, if a clinic that you're going to is having sales meetings where they're trying to find ways to generate more sales, and they have a marketing department whose number one job is to get patients in using all kinds of tactics other than showing proper before and after photos. If they have a board of directors, if they have, multiple clinics,
they have a call
nationwide.
center. They have a call center.
They have a call center. Yeah.
Yeah.
I question where the focus is in their priorities, or what the priorities are that they focus on. I'm being very generous with my question there, with my position, but I think that it serves a patient better to consider a clinic where the doctor makes the assessment for the number of grafts as the final number. It's not dictated by a consultant, and then the doctor creates a procedure that gets to that number in order to meet a quota.
And I'll go even further to say that, in my estimation, there's no one who does even the most rudimentary amount of due diligence who would go to Bosley.
Boom.
Yeah, I mean, I felt like, at least for my procedure, just sitting down with the doctor in the form of a consultation that's what made me feel the most at ease, at least. I don't think I would have felt good sitting down with some salesman, some person trying to sell me something, or a consultant or whatever. I wouldn't have felt as easy, as comfortable. Let me just put it that way.
Yeah, nor should you. I mean, I come from a day where I would go to these seminars, at like New Heart Hair Clinics or these other. I have like a 22-year-old girl, someone my age, sitting down telling me what they can do for me. And I'm looking at her, I'm like, you still have a tag on your suit. I mean, this kid is trying to sell me surgery. I knew it even when I was a desperate kid. I knew something's wrong here. So I'm glad. I'm glad that, you know. How old are you, by the way?
I'm 33.
Okay, so you're not that young, but you're young in the game, and I'm glad that you recognize this.
Well, the main reason I was calling was to ask you guys' opinion on oral minoxidil. Are you guys taking oral minoxidil or just sticking with the foam?
I don't use either.
I'm not taking any form of minoxidil. I'm strictly a finasteride guy right now.
Okay. So from what I understand, the oral minoxidil is certainly easier to stick to since it's another pill, right? You just take another pill in the morning, just like finasteride. But in terms of efficiency, what's you guys? Well, I mean, you guys aren't taking it, so maybe you guys don't know. But based on what you guys know, I mean, would you recommend oral over topical minoxidil? You would?
I would.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's based on the opinions of a lot of doctors that I know and Spencer knows, where they're seeing in their practices an improvement with with oral minoxidil as opposed to topical.
Okay. Because I was watching Hair Chemist, who I really like, by the way. He's got a great channel. And
he's the best. And he's actually utilizing the American Hair Loss Association seal properly. One of the few guys.
I saw that.
Yeah, and he seems to be a big proponent of oral minoxidil.
I can tell you this. He's a young guy who jumped in feet first at a young age. But he has done, I would say, just about everything correctly. I don't necessarily think that FUE was something I think it's good that he has the FUE experience, so he's able to explain the differences to you guys. But given his hair type and given his success with his initial strip, if I were him, I probably wouldn't have given FUE a shot. I would have continued on with strip until I was stripped out. And I think it would have saved him, some issues that he went through. But everything that this guy says, for the most part, is spot on. And I have to say that he provides young guys a really good glimpse into the reality of doing everything you need to do to slow the progression of your hair loss and to go through the surgical process. That's rare. So that's
what
why
I really liked about him is he's a big he believes in smaller surgeries over time, as opposed to mega sessions or 3,000-4,000 graft surgeries. And I think that's sort of what I'm following, because I'm 33. At the age of 32, I had 1,200 grafts done to just lower my hairline a little bit. That's all I really needed.
How is it?
And it's amazing. Dr. Yaker did it. I'm very pleased with it.
That's great.
I mean,
I got to give that guy a call. He's a good guy. We should have him on The Bald Truth too. I know you had him on your show, Joseph.
Yep. Yeah, it went well.
Yeah, Joe interviewed him. Yeah, you guys had a lot of technical problems, unfortunately, but which is too bad, because Dr. Yaker, he's a real sociable guy. He's a real.
He is.
Well, anyway,
I'm going to have him back on soon, because I got that issue worked out. So he will be back on soon. Make sure. Are you subscribed to my channel?
Yes, sir.
Okay, good. You'll get the notification when it goes live.
Sounds good. But so, like I said, all Dr. Yaker did was he just gave me 12 or 1,300 grafts. It really wasn't a big procedure, and it's still in my early 30s, so I understood that doing anything large or dramatic probably wouldn't be too smart, and just see how things go, and then maybe by the end of my 30s, kind of see whether or not something else needs to be done. And just doing smaller increments seems to be the way to go.
Well, I think it's the way. I think it's the way to go. It really depends, honestly, on your particular situation. In general, you're taking far less of a chance if you're not moving as many grafts in one sitting.
Mm-hmm.
That's just the way that it is. If for some reason you have a physiological issue or the techs were shit that day and you had a lot of transection, if you're moving 5,000 grafts in one sitting, you could lose half those grafts, you know? And if you lose half those grafts, those are a lot of grafts. But if you have a 1,200 graft case or a 1,500 graft case and something goes slightly wrong, you're not losing as much of your donor. And you're not going to have, it's not going to be as devastating. A lot of the guys, and I think, was it, who mentioned this? Where did I see this? You know, I saw this on an Instagram post by Dr. Basanga, and he was talking about these large graft cases. Oh, he's talking about someone who, a doctor who showed him his technique of extracting grafts via FUE and said something about how he's able to do something this quickly. And then he mentioned something about why it takes so long for Dr. Basanga and his staff to move these many grafts or something like that. And Basanga gets on the air, just his face, and basically says, if you would have performed surgery in that manner in my clinic, you would have been fired day one. And he said, essentially what's happening in the industry now, just like this particular doctor is doing, is they're going rapid fire to get those grafts out. They're moving 4,000 or 5,000 grafts at a time. And the results are decent because maybe 3,000 are growing and the rest are being transected. So in today's market, this wouldn't happen in Dr. Yaker's hands if he decided to move so many grafts. But in today's market in general, the guys that are getting these large cases, a large percentage of their grafts are being transected, and they have no idea that's even the case.
Yeah.
So that's another important point. Now that we're talking about, number of grafts being moved, I know that's not why you spoke about it, and that's not necessarily why the hair chemist speaks about it. But that's happening in today's market. But I am a fan. If you've known me, I don't know how long you followed me. Smaller cases, in my view, are the way to go. And I had to convince Joe of that. At one point, I'm like, what's going on with these 4,000 or 5,000 graft cases? I'm like, how do we even know all these grafts are growing in? And everyone gives percentages, and everyone's like, well, we know from this. No one knows shit. If anyone's telling you that they have a 99% growth rate, they don't know that. How do they know that?
They have no idea.
They're lying to you.
To be fair, there may have been some sort of investigation early on in their career, but no one can say for every patient across the board that survival rate will be X percentage, whether it be 85%, whether it be 95%. It's impossible. It's like Spencer said, it's basically lying to you, lying to your face.
100%.
To say that we get an average of X percent. There might be, actually, off the top of my head, there might be at least two clinics I can think of that do look at their transection rates, and then when they get their patients in, they do look at their survival rates. But to be completely fair, you can't look at a 5,000 graft case and comb through it and say, oh yeah, every one of those grew, and actually come up with a percentage. That's not happening anywhere. Full stop.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
All right, brother. Well, listen, anything else you want to add?
No, just, keep the show going. It's really awesome listening to you guys. And Joe, I'm also subscribed to you. I like the main event. And, you guys just take care. And Spencer, don't go into retirement yet.
I appreciate
just keep the show going.
I like the main event because I don't have to do it. That's what I like about it.
Didn't you call into the main event once? I think I heard you call him.
Look, dude, I can't help myself. If I hear something that's effed up, I'm going to call and I'm going to talk about it. But yeah, I'm supporting my colleague and my friend Joseph Tillman, and I want him to have a very successful show. And I like to do the show less. Now, actually, you know what? Once a week, it's not a big deal. I don't mind doing it, and I enjoy talking to you guys. So I'll be here for a while. Don't worry.
Well, that's good to know. All right.
All right, brother.
All right. Well, you guys take care. All right.
Take care. Have a good night.
All right, man. Thanks for calling.
Take care.
All right. Bye-bye.
All right, guys. We are going to go. It's 5 o'clock, and I think we started almost on time today.
Almost on time. Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So I want to thank everyone who took the time to call in. I want to thank Undercover Doc. Hopefully he's better prepared next time he calls.
We expect he will be.
We expect that he will be. I like to give him shit. But he's got a lot of stories, and he's really willing to. He's got a good sense of humor, but he's willing to tell it like it is to a certain degree. You got to understand, the guy's still making a living. He can't name names. It's the way it is. I name names because I don't give a shit. That's how I started my career. But, you know, I don't mean to pat myself on the back, but it takes courage. You have to realize you get between a man and his money, there's going to be problems. Problemos.
Yeah. Problemos.
I went up against Bosley, and I would say one of the worst offenders at the time, medical hair restoration. There were problemos.
Yes.
But I put my head down.
Sure, my God.
I put my head down, and, you know, you get past them. It's not a big deal. Can't live in fear. Got to tell the truth if you're going to be in our position, Joe.
Absolutely.
And
it can't be us.
And that's why we don't have 1 million followers.
That's right.
That's the sad part of it all. But I'm glad you guys found us. And I'm glad that we're able to provide the information that we do so that you guys can make truly informed decisions. We do our best. I'm not a person who is like married to my ideas or any ideology. If I'm wrong about something and someone is able to tell me I'm wrong about something, I'm like, oh, fuck, I was wrong about that. It's unusual. I'm going to be honest with you. Not to sound obnoxious, Joseph. It's unusual.
No, it's true. It's true.
I would say that I have predicted a lot of stuff that happened in this field and that continues to happen way back when. And I hate that that's the truth, but it really is. And for all you guys who are hoping for a cure soon, just don't hold your breath. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
No matter what blogs you're reading, no matter what information you're getting, trust me, the real stuff comes, it's on my desk. We get a chance to look at what's going on. People want the American Hair Loss Association to be involved in some capacity. So if it's a cosmeceutical, if it's something that's put out there that you're reading about on forums and stuff like that, just look at everything with a jaundiced eye and let other guys experiment with this crap.
Yeah.
Anyway, guys, until next time, we got calls on the line, but we can't take them. Until next time, be strong, God bless, and thank you all so much for listening. Have a great week.
Good night.
Thank you very much. I'm sorry for any inconvenience you may have been put to prior to the programme, and I'm glad you enjoyed it. And if you could now leave by the exits at the rear, that'd be splendid. Thank you.